Hello everyone and welcome to this Video Sans Frontières video. This video is VSF Christmas 2016 episode 2. Now what's this video about? Well, this video is about a subject which actually creates a need for me to actually start the video with a blue square with black stripes either side. So yeah, enjoy that. Here's the blue square and there's the black stripes at either side. Actually, we're going to be talking a bit about my favourite version of Mac OS X. You know, because it is Christmas time, I thought, you know, it's you know, I'd quite like to do it. You know, I want to take you back to a time where Apple computers could actually be sought after because people actually wanted a machine that could work and could be of a workstation quality while still being coupled to Mac OS X, which, let's be honest here, is quite an amazing operating system. So, if you're on a Mac now, what is Mac OS like today? Well, as I don't own a modern Mac, the most I can give you is this. Well, this is the latest version of Mac OS. It's Mac OS Sierra. It's come quite a long way actually since the original Mac OS, but the icons have changed quite significantly. I mean, they got a change in Yosemite, I do believe. It just really very, you know, the kind of adopted the flat theme, and you know, and the title bar is kind of a frosted effect. Those of you who use iPhones, you'll notice that it looks a bit iOS-like, you know, certainly since version 7. And what is this? This is Mac OS 10.12 Sierra. Nothing to do with the video game creators of yesteryear. Nothing to do with King's Quest or Caesar 3 or any of that kind of stuff, which is a bit of a shame if I'm honest. But there you are. My favourite version of Mac OS X, well, it's certainly not this because, well, I couldn't say anything about this because I have not ever used it. So let's look back, shall we, to 2009. It was quite a harrowing year for some. I admit that. But, well, let's look at something a wee bit more positive, shall we? Yeah, that's right. You go over there. So, what operating systems did we have in 2009? Sorry, I could not resist. I've not used PowerPoint in such a long time, and when setting up this slideshow, I decided to become a child again. So, what did we have available in 2009? Well, operating system most commonly used by people on a day-to-day basis got an upgrade. We got Microsoft Windows 7. Those of us of a more open source disposition, or those of us starting out in the world of open source software and operating systems, we got Ubuntu 9.10. Again, a very good operating system. But what was available on the Macintosh? Why, it was none other than OS 10.6 Snow Leopard. Yes, folks. When we're talking about Intel Macs, I have to say this is my favourite operating system that Apple put out. It made a very good companion to my MacBook Pro, which I got actually in December 2009. My 15.4-inch 2.66 gigahertz MacBook Pro, and also my iMac, which I got in 2010. Mac OS X Snow Leopard. It was just brilliant. Okay. Now, what made OS X 7 brilliant? Well, OS 10.6. It was the first version of macOS to only support Intel Macs. Now, granted, some might see that as a bad thing, because I mean they were still selling PowerPC machines. Only a few years before that, I believe they'll have been probably selling off some. Well, yeah, you could still buy PowerPC machines in 2006. You know, and if you've got a 3-year-old Mac, bearing in mind these machines are not cheap, you've got a 3-year-old Mac, and it suddenly won't take the latest version of OS X, I can imagine you're going to be a bit annoyed. However, for those of us on Intel Macs, it wasn't a bad thing, because Leopard was very big and very bulky and just a bit of a slobbering hulk of an operating system. I mean, it was good, don't get me wrong. I mean, Leopard was the first version of OS X that I had on a Macintosh that I ever owned. But at the same time, it was, like I said, a bit buggy and what have you. Well, a bit big and unwieldy and what have you. So Snow Leopard came out, and it was actually quite unique in operating systems, because I could be wrong on this, but it certainly seemed that a standard Leopard install's footprint would be something around 18 gigabytes, whereas Snow Leopard, that topped out around 8 gigabytes. And it definitely seemed to be a lot kinder to the hardware that it was run on. But while you couldn't run Snow Leopard on PowerPC based Macs, you could run PowerPC based software on Snow Leopard still. I mean, when Apple actually started to use Intel processors, every x86 version of their operating system came with something called Rosetta. What that would do is that would allow PowerPC code to run on Intel processors, which is, really quite nice. That way you could still run all your old programs, as we will see. Snow Leopard was the last version to actually support Rosetta. After that, we had to all go and find Intel compatible equivalents of our favourite applications. And, I was a wee bit disappointed that Rosetta was gone, but luckily by then, the PowerPC apps that I was using, they were actually Intel equivalents, which I'd been previously unable to find, or probably not even looked hard enough, or whatever. But yeah. So, let's actually go ahead and take a look at Snow Leopard. So, here is the Snow Leopard desktop. Well, actually, this is Snow Leopard server, because I'm running this through VMware, and VMware doesn't like running Snow Leopard desktop version. So, we're on Snow Leopard server, but there's really no difference between the two, apart from the server's default background is this background but in blue, whereas the desktop This background is obviously kind of pinks and purples and what have you. Still looks good though. And as you can probably imagine, on the 2009 Apple laptops and desktops LED displays, this would really kind of jump out at you. The good picture to kind of really show off just how vibrant and crisp the, well, not necessarily crisp, but certainly how vibrant the display is. So, what did Snow Leopard bring to the table over Leopard, apart from the fact that it would no longer support PowerPC Max and it was a lot bigger, a lot smaller? Well, first of all, the Finder, the first thing that you actually see when you go into OS X, that has actually been rewritten. Would you notice that from Leopard? No, you wouldn't. But it is actually a lot quicker. And you have, you know, a couple of nice features. So, for example, if I wanted to have a look at a document, you can actually preview it in its icon. So let's see. I can zoom in, and the default icon size is Snow Leopard actually supports 512 by 512 pixel icons. As you can see, this actually is the document. So I could actually go into preview right now. Oops. And there you have it. That is actually the document. And this actually brings me neatly onto another feature of Snow Leopard. You can now have stacks in the dock. What are stacks, you might be wondering? Let me show you. So you've always been able to drag folders down to the dock for quick, easy access. In fact, I do it on my PowerBook G4. But when I click on a folder that's been docked in OS 10.4, what usually happens is it will burp up a window, a Finder window with that folder in it. Snow Leopard, this is not the case. So if you've got a folder that's not got much in it, you'll get a nice wee stack. You know, this was one of the main features that was actually trumpeted about Snow Leopard. I quite liked it, actually. If, however, you have a folder with quite a lot of items in, you'll get this. A nice wee pop-up menu with all of your applications in there. Nice. I really did find that very useful because there wasn't always a quick, easy way to get to your applications in OS X like there is in Windows. I mean, sure, you can click Go, Applications, and then there it is. Do you really want a window coming up? I mean, obviously on older versions of OS X, you could actually right-click a folder and it would actually come up with a list of applications. Obviously in Snow Leopard, things are different. You now have a menu that actually shows some options, and you can choose to view things as a folder or as a stack of icons. So back to the download, you see all the icons kind of piled up on top of one another, and then hey presto, they all fan out. I like that. And as well, you can choose to have things in a fan. Obviously, that's not going to do for that's not really going to do any favors if you've got a lot of applications under low resolution display. You'd have to go into Finder. You can have it as a grid, or you can just have it as a good old-fashioned list, except now you've got a smoky black background instead of just the normal menu color. And I'm gonna view it as a folder. And that's actually, and this being on the dock in Snow Leopard, the applications folder being on the dock in Snow Leopard, that was something that, to me, I think was exclusive to Snow Leopard. Stop me if I'm wrong. I mean, it's only a little thing, and it wasn't, and Lion didn't have it either. It was only a little thing, but it really did make it easier to use my Mac. So much so that, like I said, in other versions of OS X, I will literally go to the applications folder, open and closing folder, and then I will drag it down to the dock myself, as you can do. The Finder is a lot quicker and a lot more responsive now, thanks to the fact that it's been rewritten. But, you could hear me talk all day about code optimization and all that sort of stuff like I knew what I was talking about, even though I don't. But nobody wants to sit through that. What about accessibility then? Nobody wants to sit through that either, but this is basically my speciality in terms of computers, so I want to talk about it just a little bit. Well, Snow Leopard actually made this a wee bit better. First of all, you have support for Braille displays, and then you have mouse gestures for trackpad gestures. Again, for people, for visually impaired users, to be able to see, to be able to help make the computer easier to use. And I do believe VoiceOver has been improved. Unfortunately, due to the way this is set up, if I try and use VoiceOver, it's going to sound terrible. But on an actual silicon chips and silicon hardware Macintosh, it's actually very nice to use. So, what else about Snow Leopard? Well, I said I was going to show you a PowerPC app running, and so I believe I will. So imagine you've just got your shiny new Mac in 2009, nice, and then you go to install Office 2004. A lot of people would have done, but there you go. That's Mac OS. Oh my goodness. That is a PowerPC app running thanks to Rosetta. Want more PowerPC madness? Here's Rail Player. Yeah.
Thanks for using our next generation Real Player from Mac OS X. You'll find loads of powerful features to play your favorite media on the web. Real Player. It just got a whole lot better.
Yeah, about that. That's the last thing you'd want to run. I actually used Rosetta mostly for emulators and, some older programs that I might have wanted to use that I couldn't find newer versions of. But Mac OS X has always had, good productivity software. So, okay, this is not a part of Leopard, but or even Snow Leopard. It's something that you buy extra. But I like the fact that iLife is included with all Macs, and you get GarageBand, which there's a lot of professional artists that do use this. And it's got, it even comes with auto-tune as well, which is still can't make me sing any better, but there you go. And I do have iWork. And all this kind of productivity software actually does bring me on to a couple of things that Snow Leopard has under the hood. Snow Leopard has got autocorrect built into the operating system. Now, okay, applications have to be rewritten to take advantage of that, but it is actually part of the operating system itself. So, there we go. So I wrote te, and it's actually automatically corrected it to the. Another thing that Snow Leopard has, which is really quite nice, is you have Microsoft Exchange email. I'm not going to actually set anything up with this, as it's a very old operating system now. But yeah, I opened up the mail app just to actually show you that. Just to show you the mail app. Well, it talks about Exchange support. Yes, it does have it, actually, believe it or not. So if you plumb your Exchange account into this, then you'll get email through. Your Mac can natively connect to an Exchange or Outlook server. You'll get your email, and you will also get your calendar. You'll also get your calendar synced as well. So that's really quite nice. I mean, there is a lot to like about Snow Leopard. Obviously, a lot of this stuff made its way into later versions of OS X, but for some of this stuff, certainly the legacy stuff, this was the last time we kind of saw a lot of the legacy stuff. You know, for example, running stuff in running Rosetta, PowerPC apps. Also, macOS 7, well, it really didn't run as well for some people as macOS 10.6 did. I actually upgraded to Lion in 2011, not long after it came out, and I've got to be honest, I was actually quite disappointed with it on my iMac. It just seemed to be quite a bit slower, and I seemed to be getting nothing but problems with certain aspects of it. For example, the Wi-Fi would continuously disconnect for no known reason. That was annoying, and I didn't like it at all. So I actually went back to Snow Leopard for a wee bit until sometime in 2012 my iLife 11 apps stopped updating. It was like, oh, I'm sorry, but you're going to need something higher than 10.6.8 for that. And so I had to go to Line. Mountain Lion came and sorted a lot of the stuff out, but I would say that in terms of operating systems, this was the Windows XP of the Mac OS X world. And I'm going to go right ahead and say it. It's small, it's light, it's compatible, and just it runs like a dream on anything that you can install it on that is compatible with it. I know that if I had access to, something like a 2007 MacBook, I probably would put Snow Leopard on it. I mean, the fact that Lion is also losing a lot of support for a lot of legacy applications at the same time that Snow Leopard is, I would say that, if you're on a slightly older Mac, then Snow Leopard would be a nice wee fit. And I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anyone. It's actually being used quite a lot today. Well, not a lot, but certainly while other versions of OS X have came out, people have taken them up and then they've stopped using it as the next version that's came out. Snow Leopard seems to have hung on a wee bit, as a lot of people do feel the same way I do about Snow Leopard. The fact that it is probably, I think, where Mac OS X kind of peaked, in a way. The software is good, and the hardware is good as well. I mean, you had the unibody MacBooks. I mean, okay, the NVIDIA chips used to fry them, which was quite tragic, but, at least they were still upgradable. You had, you had the iMacs as well. Okay, they weren't that upgradable, but they were still not bad machines. Then you had the Mac Pro. Oh man, did I ever want one of those. Oh my goodness, I always wanted a Mac Pro. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do now is, I think I will end this video. I hope you've all enjoyed it. If you have, please feel free to subscribe to the channel, like Video Sans Frontières on Facebook, and please follow me on Twitter. But in the meantime, thank you for watching this video, and I hope you'll all join me for the next episode of VSF Christmas. Cheery bye.